How's it going, YouTube? Come watching today with another video, and today, guys, what the bring to you is going to be the state of the game. I know a lot of people have had a lot of opinions on Twitter and on YouTube so far about what the game is going to be like here versus Nats versus now, and even the two regionals coming out that we have. We have Ohio and Indy coming up very soon. Ohio is a different format from Indy, which is very interesting as well, because we're going to be having battles by the time the Indy comes around. So then we have to look at the fact that Nats is a completely different format from either of them, and a lot of people were not enjoying the Snake Eye format that we're in, so there's a lot to talk about with a lot of new things coming up. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors over at Imperium Duelist, Dragonshield, Gem, Cloud, RW, Grim, or ChainLink, definitely go ahead and check them all out down below in the description, and let's hop right into our first topic. So, talking about E-bans, I know a lot of people are really gung-ho with the whole, let's E-ban everything that's a problem, right? Not necessarily how things work. We've only had a few E-bans, even ones that I can remember. Pepe had 30 out of 32 representation in Top Cut. One Cosmo, one Dino were the other two. That deck got absolutely slaughtered, which was crazy. We've seen a couple E-bans. I don't think that we'll have another one. Will we have a ban list before Nationals? I really don't think so. I think that it's going to be very similar to like Pote, where like the new set is the ban list, right? So we'll see. I heard a couple of people saying that like the info set was supposed to be like the newest set of the next season, but they wanted to give it to us for Nats, which is interesting speculation. The set itself is really crazy. There's a lot of new things coming out. We'll talk about that today. I think that if we get a Snake Eye hit, it's going to be like Poplar to 1 and ban Oak. I think that's better. I know some people want to say like Wanted to 1, which probably wouldn't be bad either. I don't hate that. Regardless, though, I don't really see an E-ban coming. I would hope so, because I don't really like the deck myself. I don't have a problem with Tier 0 decks. I just personally just dislike the Snake deck. I don't know. Just the way it plays or something. I'm just not a fan of it. But for Nationals, it's going to be the deck otherwise, because we just saw what happened at Indy. So definitely a very strong deck at the moment. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section if you think that we're going to get an E-ban or not. I know a lot of people are like, well, it's not an E-ban because it's on time, but like I don't feel like a lot of people understand what an E-ban list is and how soon it's actually supposed to come. Like if they drop one in this week for this deck, it's an E-ban list. I don't know. I hate like the weirdest conversations with people about that too. That just argue like no ban list is an E-ban list. I'm like, technically it is. But that's beside the point. We do get the new Poplar for this deck. Tenpai has been a menace. It has been an absolute menace. It was very popular at the YCS. Only one converted into Top Cut, though. So very interesting. The deck itself is pretty strong already, but the new Poplar is just insane. This gives the Pydra something else to search, because a lot of times now what people are doing is they're going activate summoning normal Pydra instead of playing into Ogre. Just so they're unaffected and they get the new Poplar. So that card is going to be really strong. If you want a deck that's going to be fairly easy to play going into the national season and also have enough power to do well, this is definitely going to be a deck to play for sure. Something that you really got to make sure that you're mindful of. Drill being very good this format, I think that's another thing that could be a problem for this deck, hypothetically. If they go out of order with their sequencing, because a lot of times you'll see them play like the Race Saw plus Fenrir as well. So if they don't respect Drill, it could be very detrimental. But I feel like a lot of people don't really respect that card at the moment either, so we'll kind of see how that goes moving forward. One card, Beatrice, in the new Fiendsmith cards. These cards are absolutely absurd. Just kind of testing around the cards now and what they can do and how they can supplement other engines and how they can be their own little thing going on to summon out like a Wave High King Caesar or a Beatrice or any other rank 6 that you realistically want to go for is really nice. Just also being like really good Fiend Link material, right? Going to things like Oppo. These are going to be the chase cards for sure out of info. Something that you really want to make sure you get your hands on as soon as possible. They do mitigate a lot of problems on a lot of decks. If you're playing Tier, obviously the Fiendsmith cards are crazy. If you're playing Snake, the Fiendsmith cards are crazy. If you're playing Lightsworn, it's really funny that Weiss is also a Light Fiend for some reason. So there's a lot of very good potential there. These cards are just absurd. We're going to be seeing them a lot moving forward. It's a pretty small engine, but it's going to be a very expensive engine, I'd imagine, unless they're like randomly super rares, right? I doubt it. I hope so. but we'll see. Especially when you get a set like this dropped on you right before a huge event, like the most important event of the year, right? You would hope that these come out as like a lower rarity, but that's just not how Konami does things usually. But who knows? Fenrir was also an ultra rare. The Bishos were super rares, but they were still like $20 for a Druid's Worm, right? So very interesting. We'll see how that plays out. The next thing is the Whitewood cards. These cards are also very strong. I think this is definitely the most underrated of the set, even though they're not exactly underrated. A lot of people know they're going to be really good, but they're just like not the Fiendsmith cards, right? I do think that these will see a lot of play at Nationals as well. A lot of people are already testing these cards. They're very strong. I could see some really cool plays like Rainbow Bridge of Salvation being able to pitch that as well and search things like Secret Village. Using the Fiendsmith cards in this deck as well, you're able to send things like Skill Drain and add it back with the level 8 Synchro, which is pretty crazy. You can also turn off Skill Drain with these cards very simply with the Reset. I think it's really crazy. You don't even have to just use that either because they all send things for cost, so you can just get it off the board immediately. Definitely a very interesting deck. I know a lot of people are trying this out with Runic. I don't like the Runic cards personally, so I wouldn't play it with Runic cards. I'd probably do it more like with higher engine counts or like Fiendsmith and Hand Traps. But that's neither here nor there. We'll have to see what this deck does moving forward. Very strong though, right out the gate. Noid is back, so we get Noid back in battles. It's gonna be definitely interesting to see what the deck does. This with the Snake Eyes cards can spam Decatron to the board multiple times. Which is definitely very cool. We do get the new Link 4, the Flood, which allows you to just basically stop a summon and then banish a card non-targeting. It's very strong. We have the new level 1 Fusion, which if you have one in your grave, you instant fusion that out, and then you can just dump a ton to grave. The Evil, which is the level 1 Fusion, does have to send equal to the number of different names that the level was that you banish. So don't get cheated with that. I know a lot of people using cards for the first time might not catch that immediately, but make sure that you are paying attention. If they send a 4, they have to send 4 with different names. The deck itself is very strong, just DD Crows on legs. So definitely very, very cool to see this back in the meta. Band Shifter. So the next thing I want to talk about is Counter Counter. So obviously we're not playing Counter Counter. I want to have a conversation about Appaloosa. So this is something where I feel like everything in the game should have a healthy counter. We're getting a lot of the community right now calling for the Appaloosa ban. I already disagree with the Baron ban. I think generic negates are really strong. They're really smart for the game, so you don't have to print the same card for every archetype. I think Appaloosa is a card that is just necessary for the game, let alone Baron. If you want to keep Baron legal or Appaloosa legal, keep one of them legal, because you should have a counter for a counter. I know a lot of people are like crying that they can't use all their hand traps in a turn and like stop their opponent completely, but at the same time, we need a card to have a counter, because like if you just put up a board and you have to do like a suboptimal board to just get rocked and then have to like play again through rock, you should at least be able to put up some kind of negation for a rock. Yes, you have hand traps, but yes, there are counters to hand traps. That's why crossout exists. That's why call by exists. Like, if you want to ban Appa, ban crossout, ban call by, like, we shouldn't have counters to counters if we should just ban every counter. I think it's a little ridiculous, in my opinion, just to be able to be like, hey, we don't need Appaloosa in the game, we don't need Baron, we don't need Savage. I think having negation on board is just something where a lot of people are just really lazy and they don't want to play through a board. They want to just be able to activate their cards immediately, like this is 2005. And I know that sounds a little harsh, but like, you should be able to play through a board. Like, if your deck can't do that, then you need to mitigate that in deck building, or at least have a stronger side to be able to push through a board. I think it's kind of crazy that every single time we get a decent card, it gets banned because everyone outcries with the card being too strong. It's just one of those things where it's like a generic negate is so important for the game because there's so many crazy cards coming out. Or if you're playing against a deck even like Snake Eye, you're telling me that you don't want to be able to put up a card that can just go negate 3 on your opponent's turn when they go like Snake Eye Ash, Poplar Effect, what have you. And then you can also side cards like we're doing right now anyways, like the Mind Control, the Change of Heart, Talents, you can Imperm Oppo. Like, there's so many counters for counters. Some cards shouldn't be legal, like Protoss, even though there are counters for Protoss, because those cards are inherently insane. They have a lingering effect that means no playability in the game anyway. In my opinion, you should be able to have cards like Appaloosa that have healthy counters that you're already playing. I think it's bad when there's cards that you have to find counters for that you wouldn't necessarily play. And I think that's the issue with cards. If you're already playing cards to go ahead and dodge things, that's fine. But I feel very strongly about having Omnis in the game. And this isn't even an Omni. This is just like a monster effect negate. It's not a spell and trap negate. So at least in my opinion, I think cards like this should be legal. Definitely let me know what you think down below in the comment section. I just hear this argument a lot, and I don't think that it's a logical one. I think we should be able to have good cards in the game without them all needing to be banned. The last thing here is new maxi. If you control no cards, discard this card, apply this effect for the rest of the turn. Each time your opponent normal special summons a monster from the hand, immediately draw one card. During the end phase, if the number of cards in your hand is more than the sum of the cards your opponent controls plus 6, shuffle cards from your hand randomly into the deck to equal that sum. This is insane versus Fluandaries. I also just really like this card in general, in the side deck alone. You almost always will go 1-for-1 trade with a draw and something they do. If they go like Poplar Effect and they summon Witch from hand as well, then you're going +1. This card just invalidates Phantasme or like the Rescue Engine for draw, in my opinion. It's also just something you can throw in the draw phase. It doesn't have to go to the graveyard. This is a really strong card. Again, it's only if you control no cards, but once you resolve it once, you should just be winning the game regardless. Even if you're shuffling back cards randomly, I think it's fine because you still have extra cards to help deal with the board, which is still fine. It also means your opponent would have to end on like very, very minimal for you to have to shuffle things back. So definitely not even that big of a deal. This is another card that I think is going to be extremely hard to find unless there's a low rarity, which I don't really see that happening. I think this will end up being a secret rare. But definitely interested to see how this will warp the format. That's not going to be like Maxi, but still going to be something you got to think about. The only reason I'm really happy this is printed is A, because Fluandaries, and B, it's an Aqua, so we can shuffle it back for Kaleidoheart. But I hope that everyone has a wonderful night, and I'll catch you all in the next video. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.